So I'm going to start with this video. I cannot share my screen and answer questions.
We, the people, are mothers, we are fathers, we are brothers, we are sisters, we are grandfathers, we are grandmothers, we are aunts, we are uncles, we are cousins, and most importantly, we are members of a family. Everywhere, parents are being denied and losing more civil and parental rights every day. Many of us are being erased, and our children are becoming scared, traumatized, mentally ill, raped, drugged, marginalized, violated, homeless, and even killed every day while in the legal custody of employees of the Department of Children and Family Services, CPS. Local, state, and federal officials and departments across America are aiding in the destruction of families based on very little, no reason, and discriminatory repression and law.
So there's more to that video, but I wanted to start off with that video that I produced earlier this year. That was based on, you know, what I had seen out here on Facebook everywhere with parents in distress over losing their children, and the information that I gathered from that, and being able to get some parents together that were willing to participate in bringing about education and reform, you know, changing things so that we don't have this continual destruction of families. Welcome to the show. I don't know, I can't hear you. Let me see if there's something. There you go. Now we got you on. Great. Thank you for joining us. And here's Ryan. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for joining.
Hey. Now you get to see my ugly mug again.
Oh, well, you know, good to see it anyway. You know, it means you're there. You're a real person. And we need
How you doing, Lyra?
Well, you know, I'm chugging along. Today I did a lot of work on the site to add some more information at the coalition4protection.com. That's coalition with the number 4 protection.com. And what I have been doing and working on since May of this year are parental rights booklets. And these parental rights booklets are really simple little booklets that parents can carry around with them anywhere, in the car, in the purse, in your back pocket even. As a parent, it's become more and more relevant that parents need to know their rights even before they have children. And so this is the big push that the Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families has been working on with. Hold on, Ryan, I didn't hear you.
I said especially in California.
And in Arizona, I mean, you know. So, wow, we're getting a lot of people on now. I would like to just ask that when you are not talking, that you could please mute yourself so that we can hear everyone without any interruption, and give every single parent advocate here a chance to speak if we may. This is wonderful to be able to have this form of communication available for people to participate in. And the idea here is that we're talking about the different ways that parents across the country have been fighting against the system, fighting against the tyranny that is the Children and Family Services, juvenile court, the court system, and family law. And so without further ado, would you please like to introduce yourself, everybody, one at a time?
Hi, everyone.
I'm Ted Fogg. I have that show, the Marchus. It used to be called the Million Parent March Live. And I just saw that you guys were doing a Zoom meeting, and that's usually how I run my show. So usually I like to help people out, obviously, if I'm not in the middle of a show or something, and you guys need a meeting set up. It's a lot easier to have the meeting if you're using an account, a paid account. And since I need a paid account to do the show, I'm more than happy to help you out with your meetings that way, if I can. It's not a huge deal to me to do that. I feel like I'm almost always on this program anyways. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Ted. We really appreciate that. And until I can figure out how to get on I have some sponsors already who want to have me be able to host my own Zoom platform, but I'm still having difficulty getting myself off of somebody else's account right now. So if I can get in contact with you later and we can set up some time this coming week for next week, if I am not able to get it resolved, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's easy. I've been on different accounts before, and it's just a matter of separating them. And if the original account was in your name, and then the person who is paying for the account switched the name, then you can still use your original account if that's the case. It can be convoluted sometimes, but it can be easily figured out. No worries.
Well, thank you. And Ted, so if I may also ask for Michelle to introduce herself tonight.
Hi, Lyra. Hi, Ted. Thank you guys both for what you do. I just want to start with saying that my name is Michelle Chan. I'm founder and president of Parents Against CPS Corruption. I'm a contributing writer for the San Francisco Baby newspaper, and I also contribute to Ex Parte Press, which is a forthcoming publication that's focusing on issues concerning families in our courts. And it's an exciting project, so I can't wait until it comes out. You know, that's about it. I do have some questions. Actually, Lyra, this meeting, is this live or is it a public meeting? Just so I know.
What it is it is a private meeting that I am recording, and what I do with the recording is that I edit what people do not want to have published online. I do publish, I don't publish all the meetings, in fact, on public communication, but I do publish most of them. I try to keep it so that we have a lot of important, pertinent information on the show and not so much of the personal information. So
yes. Well, I'm just asking because there are some, you know, there is something that I would like to talk with you about that's going on right now in, you know, locally in California, actually. And I just haven't, I'm not sure if it's, so a lot of it has to do, I'm sure you're familiar with the issue with the audit, the CJP audit that was, and and with the CJP lawsuit against the state auditor. And anyway, at the last hearing, the Commission on Judicial Performance is suing the state auditor, saying that they don't have a right to be audited. And it's been grim. It's looking grim right now, and there's a lot of talk going around, and we're not very optimistic that the audit is definitely going through. And so there's some work that we have concerning that coming up, that I wanted to just get your thoughts on. I think that if Judge Bolanos does rule against the audit, my group is seriously considering launching a recall effort against Judge Bolanos. And I just want to know what you think about that. What are your thoughts on launching a recall effort, just in general, as in response to singling out this judge?
I believe that it's a good idea to request a recall order. I just feel, this is the way I feel about this whole state and the way that things are run in this state, is that they are not interested in, none of the people in legislation right now that I can see are really for reform in parental rights, reform in the juvenile courts, and they're not wanting to look at all of the faux pas, shall we say, that the officials and employees of the state have committed throughout the years. I feel that we have to look at this, in court systems, and honestly, a lot of the legislative offices as well, because at this point in time, from what I have seen, they're doing everything they can to push an agenda to discriminate against parents with disabilities and to make it even harder to be a parent if you live in a trailer, if you live an alternative lifestyle. And although there has been some advances in certain areas of parental rights, a lot of parental rights are not even recognized in the state of California.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to do a full-on cleaning out of the whole system.
Yeah.
I fear that's the only way we're going to get any progress here.
You're right. Well, I know, Ted, a lot of your efforts are on the federal level, so that's where it's at the federal level. Except that's just right now locally. My issue, a lot of the work that we do is local, just because right now, for me and a lot of the members of our group, we have active cases, and for locally is where I'm able at least to put pressure on the judges and the social workers to make better decisions individually. And I know it's not lasting change, but I see it like this: if we can't get out of our own situations, we can't enact. How can we even enact lasting change, or how can we be role models until we actually win our own battles? I never expected it to be such a long battle, though.
As a hurdle, you'll never get justice in a family court. It will never happen. They call themselves non-state actors even, which means that the family courts are basically you or I setting up a court. It's insanity what the jurisdiction that they take and then say that they have no responsibility because they're not even state actors. So any family court case or juvenile court case, and this wasn't always the way with juvenile courts. There used to be a little bit of justice in juvenile courts in the 90s, but you pretty much have to have everything ready for the higher court, which before the federal appellate court is the superior court in your states. A lot of times, you could be in a state like you could live in Bangor, Maine, where you have the Superior Court, I believe, is in Augusta, and then you have the Federal Appellate Court for all northern New England, in Bangor, not too far away. Me, I have to go all the way to freaking Buffalo because I'm in Vermont. But even on a local level,
there.
what's that?
I used to live there.
Oh, up in Maine.
No, in Vermont. That's where my
Oh,
parents
yeah.
were. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I grew up in New Hampshire. I live in Vermont now because they don't have a lot of manpower here to come after me, basically. Anytime you can work locally, but in your capital where the Superior Court is, like for instance, that's what Shane Downs does with the United States Brotherhood of Fathers. They've got a really cool action committee that was started in Australia. I've asked them to change the name, but that falls on deaf ears. But there's somebody always in front of either the family court in Sacramento or the Superior Court in Sacramento with, family law reform banners and signs and everything. And they just stand out there to greet people as they get screwed coming out of court, not knowing what just hit them. But the main thing that what Kirk is trying to teach people is you're not going to get any justice in family court ever. It's not going to happen ever. Doesn't matter what legislation we pass, it's never going to happen. So you need to be prepared to go to the higher court immediately. I mean, ultimately, the goal is to get rid of family court altogether because the procedures, when no-fault divorce was created, we kept the same procedures as action for divorce. So action for divorce was found to be unconstitutional, but then we kept the same procedures, making no-fault divorce unconstitutional. And family court really kind of sets the standards for all parental relationships, whether you're in a case involving Title 4E or Title 4D. So all of this really goes right back to the root cause of fixing no-fault divorce and having a civil contract, a private civil contract between a mother and a father, whether married or not, that says that the child has a fundamental right to both parents, and those parents' rights to that child is above the state. I mean, all that stuff is there in our Constitution, but until we have a contract that says it, I mean, the perceptions of what family court is have been working now for 1970, so 47 years, right? I'm 41. So that's a lot of time to change perceptions on how courts are supposed to work. If for instance, prenups were made mandatory and were considered a private civil contract, none of this would evolve this way. Right now, if you have a prenup, it means nothing in family court. Lawyers will charge you thousands and thousands of dollars to get rid of prenups. So really, family court is a lose-lose. No matter what you do in family court, you're going to lose for the most part. CPS as well. You just need to be prepared to go to the next court. And family court breaks constitutional law on average every 8 seconds. So it's not whether you have a case, it's whether you're prepared for the case. So hopefully that's not too convoluted. I'd suggest listening to to Kirk's show on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern and ask questions there. He's been studying this sort of law, not just family law, but other types of law for over 2 decades now, and he's just a freaking wealth of information. And it's all been because of necessity, not because he's a lawyer, not because he's profited, but because he's had to defend himself. You know what I mean? So he's very valuable, and the ideas and the knowledge he has is just incredible. There's things that a lot of us haven't even taken into consideration before. So, did I answer any part of your question or completely skirt around it?
I think you answered the question. Things are a little different here in Arizona. Yeah, they screw a lot of parents here. But I think on an Arizona front, it's one, how quick you can smash their allegations, even in family court. It really is. And that's how Arizona works. If you can't smash their allegations like immediately, you're going to go through living hell. I went through 2.5 years. Actually, I would say in my case, I think I went through 4 total years. And I was able to smash allegations, but the minute I smashed one allegation, then they would trump up something else. Like, if you're not familiar with my story, Ted, I had guardianship, which I filed for adoption on my baby cousins. And CPS didn't like that idea because, of course, I cut out the middleman and they couldn't make money. So they took them. And then we went to the first court hearing, and I was able to smash all their allegations. I had everything, my ducks in a row. I had all the paperwork. I handed out packets that were that thick at the initial hearing. The judge took one look at the packet, spread everything out. That was doctor's reports, that was therapy reports, that was everything. And the judge looked at the CPS and goes, "Why do we have these kids? They're not abused, they're not neglected, and there's nothing wrong. Everything, he's doing everything right." And she just goes, "Well, da da da." And the judge says, "I give you 30 days to have these kids reunited with their family." A week later, I ended up with the SWAT at my house saying I threatened to kill everybody in my house. But I was sitting in a visit when that happened. And my son at the time was 15 years old. He's homeschooled. And they didn't get a hold of my son that time. So Lyra already knows my story, a lot of it. I went on the run for a few months with my son. I didn't want the state to get a hold of him. And then they finally got a hold of him. I've had SWAT at my house, not once, not twice, 3 times, kicking my door in to get my kid. My front door is still messed up. So I went to battle that, and I had all my ducks in a row. And that judge was like completely, he didn't want to hear anything. So the whole time, here I am, and I'm having to counter everything, just constant counter their fight. Everything they would say, everything they would do, it was just a constant, no, that's wrong. They got really mad because I federally sealed my son's psychological records from when he was my son's. I federally sealed my cousin's records, and I federally sealed all my medical and psychological records on them. So they couldn't access anything. I cut them off. We're not being cooperative. You're not allowing me to submit things in court. So I didn't see my son for 6 months. And by the 6th month, the judge looked at them and said, "I want to know what he has." Because somebody that is tired of your crap is going to start sealing stuff. And that's when we started. Granted, it took me 2 years to get him home. I never got the little ones home. But it took me 2 years. And the judge was, at that point, I brought in a bachelor's level degree therapist that was countering their psychologist. And the judge was pissed off at CPS. They hired David Bluth, is the psychiatrist's name, to do a forensic psychology report on me and my son. Bluth lied throughout the whole entire thing, saying that all these things were elevated. So what I ended up doing with my bachelor, got the psychiatry report. I took it to her, and then I went and got a neuropsychiatrist involved in it, and my own forensic psychiatrist. And I took them into the courtroom, and between those three people called bullshit on my whole entire case. And I was able to bring my son home. It was a long, hard battle, and it was a lot of money out of my own pocket. But if you're able to pull out the right stoppers, and Lyra, I brought kids home by pulling out the right stoppers, but it was experienced through my own, going through 4 years of this. And not only, Ted, I had experience with family court, but that was in the early 90s. So I'm not up to date to what's going on now. I apologize. I wish I knew more. I have cousins that are going through it, and I'm like, how can they do that? They didn't do it in my case. So, there was a big, from what I'm seeing, it was like things didn't go backwards. They advanced forwards, but they were, now they treated parents more in a criminal matter versus an empathetic matter. The courts back when I went through was very empathetic towards both parents.
Yeah.
Although it was now it's about money. The judge, I went in pro se, and everything was handwritten on notebook paper, and I was submitting it that way, notarized. And now I guess you have to do it on their specific documents. Is that true, Ted? I can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
Sorry.
It depends. Really depends. There's documents that each state doesn't have, but you can file your own documents if you do it correctly. If they don't take them, then that's a deprivation of rights, and you go to the next court. It's all about Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights. It's you a case in the higher court because the family court always deprives you of your rights.
Yeah, see, that's what I was explaining to you, Ted, is I have a lot of people that I try to help with divorce cases and
Right.
custody cases, but I'm very unfamiliar. Although when we go to battle with CPS,
Yes.
I'm very familiar with that.
Right, and it's juvenile court. Here's the thing: cases in the 90s in juvenile court, what I'm finding is, so a parent who got justice in the early 90s used that same path, that same map that they used in the 90s today, and they lose custody instantly. And that's because that has, obviously, because of the incentives. And the problem is what you're seeing now is amendments like in Missouri, equal shared parenting amendments, which is great, except it doesn't change the fact that the courts base their revenue off of the incentives. And the revenue can't go down every year. It needs to go up every year. So they literally, legislators will put in place and appoint judges in family and juvenile court who will do what they want them to do. Doesn't mean that they're good judges. It means that they get revenue. So what's happening in family court right now is when you have equal shared, a state that passes a bill that says equal shared parenting, what happens is every case becomes a fitness hearing. And so what they really are doing is they'll dig into both parents' past, find something that they did even before the children was born, create a foster child in a divorce case, and get their revenue that way. It's really fucked. It's the most. If you know anybody in Missouri, like Cheryl Lagares or Rosemary Dalton, those are the people that I usually talk to about that stuff. So what the shared parenting goals are doing, even though they do something really good for a short period of time, ultimately they'll show usurpations of the courts, both under Title 4E and Title 4D. And there was, juvenile courts weren't bad in the early 90s, but because of the family courts, really because of the incentives, but the corruption in the family courts, since they're tied to juvenile courts, kind of backfed and completely corrupted the juvenile. I was in juvenile courts in the early 90s, and even though I was older, I was easily able to get myself out of these situations without any money. But these days, there's
But yeah, back in the early 90s, I was able to get through my, I went through divorce in the early 90s and custody in. But my experience, once again, my experience with CPS, and maybe they're following the same standard that CPS does, but if you have anything, and it doesn't matter what it is, and Lyra, you probably can agree with this, like when I was a kid, I used, and I will be openly and honest, I used various drugs, experimenting. Well, I made a mistake by telling a psychologist that, and they used that against me to try to keep my kid away.
something you did before way before your kids were even born.
Now, Michelle has
correct.
risen her hand. She would like to say something. If we could give her a moment to talk. Go for it, Michelle.
Okay.
This discussion on solutions, and it's something I've been, think long and hard about. That's why I made the joke, Lyra, and don't think too hard, because it really does hurt. And I know there are solutions, and there's some the long-term solutions, but I also, for us, becoming more movement, the participants in our have all abused. And that's one thing that makes our movement somewhat unique, is that just about every participant in our movement has been affected and harmed by this issue, which also means that we're broken. And and it's so hard. And that's one of the reasons why this movement's so hard to get people going, is to give people hope and to keep them, to get them to believe, and give them hope. And that's why I believe looking at, I just like to win small win now. But at the same note, I want to figure out like solutions that are now. I know, especially in California, a lot of people are starting to come out and come out from hiding, and a lot are starting to come through statewide. They're hopefully, and guys can put any thoughts on this. One idea is, obviously there's, Joe Sweet mentioned maybe, doing having an audit done on CPS. I do know that CPS was audited in 2014. Tim Donnelly and Ruby Dillon were the one who trailblazed it and caused it. And San Francisco County was actually one of those, one of the counties, one of the 3 counties that was audited. And as you all know, I'm from San Francisco. Hello? You guys, am I breaking up still? Oh, yeah. I live on top of a hill. Do you guys hear me now?
I can hear
Not
you.
at all?
It goes in and out. So the very first part, I didn't hear what you said, and then I could hear it for about a minute, and then it cut out for like another 30 seconds or so, enough so that I couldn't understand you. So I just wanted to make sure I told you that, or somebody told you that.
Well, can you hear me now?
It was breaking up again.
Okay, maybe I'll pass for now then. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate your input here. We are still working this out. And I do have my 10-minute reminder, so I want to apologize for cutting this short. But I think we're talking about a lot of important issues here. I just wanted to add a little something about the chain of command, basically, of what courts to go to, from the county court to the Court of Appeals to, and then on up. And from what I understand, you can actually, at any point in time, request that you be removed from the county court and have your case be put into federal court. The issue that I have also been hearing, though, is that in order to go to the federal court level, you need to have a lawyer, because you can't do it on your own, or you need to be in a class action. This is what I've heard, and so I want to see about how this sits with everybody, and if there's some information we can share with parents who are in a quandary about that before we go.
Yeah, notice of special appearance. I make sure to file pro se or pro per. This is all stuff. Yeah, you are absolutely have a right to represent yourself. And when you file pro per, it says that you are your own person. You're not anybody else's person. Basically, what lawyers done, to just sum it up, really, what's happened over the last 100 years is, if you hire a lawyer, you are saying that you do not understand your rights. And then more recently, it's gone further to, if you don't file special appearance and file pro per or pro se, they just automatically think that you don't know anything, that you're not your own person, that you need somebody to represent you. So you need to file at least one, but ultimately two things. Notice of special appearance, that you are not just going there generally, you are going there specially before them, and that you are representing yourself. You are your own person, and you are not an idiot. You know what you're doing. And that way you don't need a lawyer. They'll trick you into a lot of different things, but there's two simple forms you need to fill out at the onset of every single case, whether it's family court, juvenile court, this superior court, Supreme Court, or the appellate court. And you always need to file that notice of appearance and determine whether, some people say pro se, some people say pro per. It really depends on the judge. The judges really, a lot of judges don't care which or the other, but some judges they see so many pro se cases that if you throw pro per in their face and you have the pocket constitution in your pocket, in your breast pocket, along with a camera recording them that they don't know about, everybody needs to get a pen cam. There's steps you can take, and I'm telling you, Kirk Pendergrass is an authority on the subject, and since we started the show, we've been able to bring these minds together, people like Chris Hallett, some people I've just met, like Tony. He's out of the same state as Kirk. It's really amazing. It's an amazing show, and I produce it so I can use some of the more interesting things that they talk about on Wheel of Judiciary, where I can reiterate some of those finer points. And I've only been producing a show for the last 5 weeks. That's it. But it's just great. It really is. Watch that show Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Call into the show with these questions like that. He'll love it. He'll be all over it. It's a wealth of information.
Great. So this is a great show to plug, and I really appreciate you sharing that information with everybody. and we have only 3 minutes left. So if everybody would like to say a little something before we go, just to.
I wish I could have heard what Michelle was saying. I could, from what I heard, you know, she's a very affluent speaker, very clear. So not being able to hear her was very disappointing. So Michelle, I'd like to get a better understanding of what you were saying at some point somehow.
Sure, Ted. Oh, Ted, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
No, not.
No, he can't. Oh no. Darn it.
I'll type it.
I've got super fast stuff happening. So,
Well, thank you.
Good to see
For joining us, Ted and Michelle and Ryan. And you know what I hope we can do here is continue sharing this information, getting more people involved and being able to disperse it, because it's about the connections we make, but it's also about spreading the education and